Wiggins Bike given a second life. Welcome to the channel. This is Johnny from GoJohnnyGo, and today we're going to look at a Bradley Wiggins branded bike. This is a lovely little bike. This is the Ruean 700. This is a lightweight aluminium frame, and it actually is a really lovely, stylish little bike. These came out in 3 different wheel size options: a 24 inch, a 26 inch, and this the 700C version. The particular bike that you are looking at right now is suited for 11 years of age upwards, and to be honest, it would have been your entry level into your first road racing bike, your first drop handlebar bike. Unfortunately, this one had lots of issues. Right there, I was just showing you the derailleur, and there's an awful kink in the rear derailleur line, causing it not to be able to shift at all. Also, this handlebar has been offset completely. I don't know if that was from factory or somebody went after. Whoever built this bike up probably, just didn't do things correctly. There's also lots of little scuffs and rips and tears in certain things, but we're going to do the best we can on a budget to try and get this thing recommissioned, moving again, properly back together, so it can be given to my niece, who's actually starting to get into road bikes now. Now, why did I buy this? Well, the reality was it was very cheap. So I bought this on an adverts website for about €30, and to be honest, the front wheel is the Shimano RS front wheel. It's an aftermarket one. They're worth about 80 new, so I knew I couldn't lose on this. And when I took it home, I realised it was actually in quite good condition, apart from just not being set up very well. So I'm just taking off both wheels, just tearing everything down, taking off the rear derailleur, front derailleur, and getting the cranks off here. This bike was bought, knowing that it would need some work, and you can see I've just already started. I've just realigned that front handlebar. That couldn't have ridden very well. It was out over an inch, so it's definitely going to affect the handling. Another worrying thing I found was this sticker actually said, please remove sticker and make sure that the crank is tight while assembling. So whoever assembled this bike obviously just threw it together, didn't really care, possibly just not a very well trained mechanic, let's say. So the plan for this one is very simple: wash everything down, get all the parts ready, replace what needs to be replaced, and get it back working perfectly. So as you can see here, I'm just washing down a frame with some muck off cleaner, just a big softy brush, really handy thing, and then there's a couple of little sections that I go at with the detailing brush, and this is great for those sections like behind the wheels where it really does throw up a lot of crud and onto the frame. So just trying to get this frame nicely cleaned up so it can be looking as fresh as possible. There is a couple of quite nasty chips on it, but apart from that, most of this paint actually came up really well. I did also polish it with some autoglym polish, which is a lovely polish. You can see it there in that picture, and all of these parts here, you can just see that rear cassette is going to have to go into the ultrasonic cleaner. All the brakes, all the derailleurs are going to have to go into the ultrasonic cleaner, and they just are gummed up. This bike just hasn't had that preventative maintenance. A couple of little bits of rust here and there, nothing terrible. That rear derailleur, that rear Claris 8-speed derailleur has been definitely laid down on the ground or anything. The front one is actually in an impeccable condition. I was really surprised by that. And here we are, the ultrasonic cleaner. This is you can see how it lifts the dirt off it there in that shot. It's really good at getting into those nitty-gritty places, and the result is everything does look fresh and new after. You can see there, you're never going to get those scratches and that rust out, but most of the time things come up quite shiny. You give them a quick wash off after, and it really does. I'm going to get rid of the dummy plate there, but everything else came out quite well. Worryingly enough, that rear brake caliper, actually the pads were starting to move around in it, so I got that before it came completely loose. That was going to cause somebody a headache on a ride someday if it wasn't looked at soon. And now we reassemble. So rear derailleur back on, front derailleur back on, front brake back on, and then everything torqued up to specific torque, and also that crank back in place. Yeah, I was impressed by the bottom bearing, and this was in good condition, and it was a really easy bike to work on. Nice little aluminium frame, everything was kind of easy enough to tip away on. One thing that did catch me out though was the shifters. The front shifters actually were full of sand, so I did buy this out by the coast, and obviously the young man who I bought it off, he must have went to the beach someday and laid this down on, definitely on the right hand side, because that right hand side shifter was full of sand, actually like affecting its changing and its shifting capability. So I did put both shifters into the ultrasonic cleaner. Again, it's something that if you went out with a brush or tried to wash out, you'd only get so far. That ultrasonic cleaner is really good at getting things like sand out of things that you wouldn't see. So I'm glad I kind of ultrasonic cleaned everything in this, just to make sure that there was no sand in it after I got caught out on the shifters at the end. They just didn't, I only caught them at the last second just before I was about to cable this bike, and realised actually no, they're going to need a bigger job than they actually did initially look like it. And I'm glad I did, because if there's anything that's going to ruin shifting, it's going to be sand in around grease, in around, you know, cables and things like that. It's going to cause a headache. So brand new chain onto this bike just to complement the work and the build. So everything to do with the drivetrain was replaced. So all new cables, inners and outers, brand new chain, you know, just everything re-lubed back up after it went through the ultrasonic cleaner and was washed down after. So just getting this thing as fresh as possible. And as I said, I polished the frame as well, just to get that frame popping again and to give it a kind of a layer of protection. Everything was greased up adequately, copper grease on most of the treads, and any of the springs, a nice kind of castor oil grease is what I use. A lot of people go on about Shimano grease. I find it's just very expensive. The castor oil grease seems to be a little bit cheaper. It may not be exactly, but for something like this, it's not going to ruin it. So you can see I'm just trying to get that shifting as good as I can there. It wasn't shifting at all on the right lever when I got this bike. It just would not move up or down a cog on the rear. On the front would work, but again, very slow, very slack, and just not set up correctly. So what does the finished product look like? Well, if you ask me, it looked quite well actually. So the saddle went down to suit my niece, and this brand new shiny drivetrain with a brand new chain, and that rear cassette looks just absolutely clean and beautiful again. That front Claris looks quite good. There's a nasty chip on the frame and a little bit of a tear in the seat, but you know, it's not going to ruin my day completely. It's you know, the seats are cheap enough. You can always throw a sticker over that chip. And yeah, we did the bar tape up. There's a couple of scrapes on the shifters, but you're never going to get that out, and there's no point putting new shifters on something like this. And just from the other side then, really clean. Tiny couple of scuffs couldn't come out of the down tube there, but brakes working perfectly, everything looking really good. And I really am taken with these forks. I think they're beautiful. They're really, really nice the way they curve in. Just, you know, shortening that wheelbase, making it really nice to ride. I actually did cycle this and it rode quite well. One other thing I noticed was it still had the film on the Wiggins Black. So yeah, just took that off as the very last thing to do. And I think, you know, it just shows you on a new bike, when you build it up, that is something that should come off. So somebody hadn't done that. I'm just really glad I got to give this bike a second life, and I hope my niece enjoys it. Thanks.